I never thought I'd be the type of woman to destroy her own marriage. The kind you read about in hushed tones, the cautionary tale whispered over brunch mimosas. But here I am. My name is Alara, I'm 32, and I need to get this out before it eats me alive. You know those moments? The ones where a few words leave your mouth and you can't snatch them back, and they just hang in the air, glittering and toxic, right before they detonate your entire world. Yeah, I had one of those. But to be fair, and I am trying to be fair here, I don't think this was entirely my fault. Let me start at the beginning. I met Liam at my friend Clara's wedding 3 years ago. He wasn't even supposed to be there. A last-minute replacement for a groomsman who'd come down with a vicious case of food poisoning. That's when I first saw the stark, blinding contrast between him and his brother, Finn. Liam had this stillness about him, a quiet gravity. He was a geologist for an international mining company, a job that sounded both incredibly serious and impossibly distant. He didn't try to be the center of attention. He just stood there, a solid presence in a sea of frantic celebration, observing everything with calm, intelligent eyes. Finn, on the other hand, was the party. He was the one telling jokes that made the bride's grandmother snort with laughter. He was the one who knew the bartender by name and was teaching the flower girl the latest ridiculous dance craze. Honestly, Finn was the one I noticed first. He was a supernova. How could you not? But it was Liam, steady, quiet Liam, who made a move. While Finn was holding court by the champagne fountain, Liam walked over to me. He asked for my number with a directness that was both startling and, I'll admit, incredibly attractive. I remember thinking it was sweet, almost quaint. Our first date was at a little dockside cafe, just hours before he was due to fly out to some remote site in Chile for 3 weeks. He ordered a ridiculous amount of food, a geologist thing, apparently, stocking up before heading into the wild, and we talked for hours. He was different from the men I usually dated. When I spoke about my dream of opening my own boutique floral design studio, he didn't just nod along. He listened. He asked about my business plan, about sourcing unique blooms, about location and overhead. Most men's eyes glazed over. Liam's lit up. And I won't lie, the salary of a senior geologist didn't hurt. After years of struggling, working for other florists and barely making ends meet, the idea of that kind of security was intoxicating. Plus, him being away for weeks at a time? It seemed perfect. I'd have space, time for myself, time to build my dream. The wedding happened fast, maybe, looking back, too fast. But when you hit your early 30s, a certain pressure begins to build. My mother started sending me articles about declining fertility. My younger sister was already on her second kid. Liam seemed like the perfect package. A stable career, a good family, and genuine support for my ambitions. He was the smart choice, the right choice. Finn was Liam's best man, and that's when things started to get complicated. During the wedding planning, the three of us spent a lot of time together. When Liam was away on a long haul, Finn would show up at my apartment with takeout, claiming he was just checking on his future sister-in-law. He'd make these little jokes, leaning against my kitchen counter while I arranged a bouquet. You know, he'd say, a playful glint in his eye. You're far too much fun for my serious, rock-obsessed brother. I'd laugh it off. Of course I would. But the words stuck to me, like pollen. The ceremony was beautiful, a blur of white roses and soft sunlight. But the thing I remember most vividly? Finn's best man speech. He told this story about how Liam had always been the responsible one, the one who made their parents proud, while he was the screw-up, the one who bartended and lived in a tiny apartment above a noisy street. But the way he told it, he wasn't ashamed. He was proud of being the fun one, the free spirit. And I caught myself, for a split second, wondering what life would be like with someone like that. Someone who didn't just analyze the world, but who danced through it. After the honeymoon, real life settled in. And it was brutal. Liam's schedule was relentless. 3 weeks away, 2 weeks home. Rinse, repeat. I threw myself into launching my studio, Petale. But the reality of running a business was so much harder than the dream. The invoices, the taxes, the clients who canceled last minute. Liam tried to help. He'd sit down with my spreadsheets during his time home, his brow furrowed in concentration. Maybe you should start smaller, Alara, he'd suggest gently. Build up your client base gradually before investing in all this premium inventory. His suggestions felt like criticism, like he didn't believe in my vision. I didn't want gradual. I wanted it to be perfect, an Instagram-worthy paradise, from day one. That's when Finn started showing up more. He'd drop by the studio with coffee, claiming he was in the neighborhood. He was the first to like every single one of my Instagram posts, leaving comments like, "The most beautiful flowers in the city, made by the most beautiful artist." When I vented about Liam's long absences, Finn would nod sympathetically. "That's Liam for you," he'd murmur, his voice laced with something I couldn't quite name. Always got his head in the clouds, or under the ground. Never here, where the real stuff is happening. Looking back, the warning signs were all there, weren't they? The little thrill I'd get when his name flashed on my phone. The way I'd find myself wearing my favorite dress on days I thought he might stop by. The way I constantly compared them in my head. Liam's careful planning versus Finn's spontaneity. Liam's comfortable silence versus Finn's endless, engaging conversation. But I justified it. Of course I did. Liam was gone so much. Finn was just being a good brother-in-law. A friend. It wasn't like anything was going to happen. They were brothers. I wasn't doing anything wrong. That's what I told myself. The truth? I was building a fantasy. A whole separate life in my head where I'd chosen the other brother. Every time Liam came home, exhausted from a 20-hour flight and just wanting to sleep. Every time he questioned an expensive vase purchase for the studio. Every time he missed a friend's dinner party because of work, I'd think Finn would have handled this differently. I started following Finn's social media like it was my job, watching his stories from the trendy cocktail bar where he worked, with its laughing customers and vibrant energy. Meanwhile, Liam barely had a social media presence. Said he stared at enough screens in his life. It was just another difference. Another crack, my friends noticed. Clara, the one whose wedding started it all, pulled me aside at her baby shower. "You seem different around Finn," she said, her voice low. "Be careful, Alara." I brushed her off. I was married to Liam. I was committed. Finn was just Finn. Family. But every time Liam's car pulled out of the driveway for another trip to the airport, every time Finn sent another funny meme or stopped by with my favorite iced latte, the line between appropriate and inappropriate blurred just a little bit more. I started looking forward to family gatherings not because I'd see my in-laws, but because I knew Finn would be there, with his stories, his jokes, and his uncanny ability to make me feel like the most fascinating person in the room. I didn't realize I was poisoning my own marriage, drop by drop. I was too busy blaming Liam's absence for my growing closeness to his brother. Too busy playing with fire to notice I was about to get burned. Things really started to unravel about 6 months into the marriage. Liam's company added more international routes, which meant his trips got longer. 4 weeks away, 2 weeks home. The money was better, sure, but I was spending most nights alone in our big, quiet house, scrolling through my phone, watching Finn's life unfold in colorful, happy little squares on a screen. He always seemed to be having so much fun, while I was stuck managing a floral studio that was, if I'm being honest, bleeding money. I started making excuses to see him. I signed up for an evening pottery class at a studio conveniently located 2 blocks from his bar. "Just trying to expand my creative network," I told Liam, when he noticed the charge on our credit card statement. Finn would stick around after his shifts. We'd grab a late dinner at a small, hidden bistro. We talked about everything and nothing. He understood my frustrations with the studio in a way Liam just didn't. While Liam would suggest practical solutions, reduce overhead, offer a subscription service, Finn would tell me to follow my heart. That money wasn't everything. That my art was too pure to be constrained by spreadsheets. He made me feel seen. Liam just made me feel managed. The studio was hemorrhaging cash. I'd maxed out 2 credit cards on high-end Dutch vases and a custom-built refrigeration unit, convinced that the right aesthetic would bring in the high-end clients. When Liam came home and started asking hard questions about the business finances, I got defensive. "You're never even here," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "What do you care how I run things?" That's when the secret meetings started. I told myself it was for business advice. He ran a bar. He knew about managing inventory and customers. But we both knew it was an excuse. We'd meet at this quiet coffee shop across town, far from his usual haunts. He'd lean in close, his knee almost touching mine under the small table, as I complained about Liam, about his absence, his obsession with saving, his inability to understand my vision. "He's always been like that," Finn would say, his voice a low, sympathetic hum. "All work, no play." Remember that time he missed your studio's grand opening party because of a last-minute flight change? Of course I remembered. Finn had been there instead. He'd helped me pour champagne, charmed my first clients, and made everyone laugh with his clumsy attempts to arrange a bouquet. He had saved the night. Our text conversations got longer, more frequent. I started checking my phone obsessively, angling the screen away whenever Liam was home. Finn sent me songs that reminded him of me. Pictures of sunsets from the bar's rooftop patio with captions like, "Wish you were here to see this." I saved every single one. I think Liam noticed the change in me. He started trying harder when he was home. He cooked dinner. He suggested date nights. But I was already gone. I was already pulling away. Everything he did felt wrong. His practical gifts, a new set of pruning shears, a subscription to a trade magazine felt thoughtless compared to the little surprises Finn would leave at the studio. My favorite energy drinks. A cute apron he'd seen at a market. The money issues got worse. When Liam found out I'd spent our entire vacation fund on a custom-built waterfall feature for the studio's entryway, he was furious. "You're acting like a teenager, Alara," he said, his voice tight with a rare anger. "This isn't sustainable." I stormed out. I drove straight to Finn's bar. That night, we stayed talking until long after closing. He mixed me intricate, smoky cocktails and listened as I ranted about Liam's controlling behavior. "You're too good for this," he said, his fingers brushing mine across the polished wood of the bar. "You deserve someone who gets you." The way he looked at me in that moment, I felt something shift, something dangerous and irreversible. The next day, Henry tried to have a serious conversation. He'd found more hidden credit card statements. Instead of owning up to it, I turned it on him. "Maybe if you were home more, I wouldn't need to spend money to feel less alone," I shouted. The words were ugly, manipulative, but I couldn't stop them. Finn understands that. He understands people need more than just practicality to be happy. That was the first time I saw real, gut-wrenching hurt in Liam's eyes. He went quiet. Quieter than usual. He left for his next 4-week trip without saying goodbye. I told myself he was overreacting. When I called Finn, crying, he agreed with me. He came over that night with takeout and a bottle of expensive wine. We sat on the couch, watching terrible reality television until 2 in the morning. Looking back, I can see the snowball effect. Every time Liam questioned my decisions, I ran to Finn. Every time Liam was away, Finn was there. I was constantly comparing them. How Finn would compliment a new dress, while Liam would ask what it cost. How Finn would bring me lunch spontaneously, while Liam stuck to our agreed-upon budget for dining out. The breaking point began at a family dinner at Liam's parents' house. I'd had a rough week. 3 major clients had canceled their wedding floral contracts, complaining about my high prices. Liam, over the phone from a hotel in Dubai, had suggested again that I lower my rates. I was still simmering with anger, so when his mom brought out the wine, I didn't hold back. Finn was sitting across from me, telling an animated story about a wild bachelorette party at his bar. Liam was quiet, picking at his food, probably exhausted from jet lag. The wine made me bold, reckless. I started laughing too loudly at Finn's jokes. I leaned forward when he talked, touching his arm when he passed the salt. "Remember when you came to my studio opening?" I said, my voice louder than necessary, cutting across the table. Finn actually showed up, unlike someone. I saw Liam's jaw tighten, but I kept going. I was on a roll, and all my pent-up frustration was spilling out, hot and toxic. He even tried doing flower arranging. You should have seen him. He's surprisingly artistic. I looked pointedly at Liam. Finn is always so supportive of my work. He never misses a chance to stop by when he's free. Unlike my own husband, who's always too busy flying around the world. Liam's mother tried to change the subject, but I couldn't stop. "You know what's funny?" I said, swirling my wine. "Finn knows more about my business than Liam does. He actually listens when I talk about it, instead of just throwing budget problems in my face." The table went silent, utterly, horribly silent. Liam put down his fork, his face a perfect, unreadable mask. Something inside me, something cruel, wanted to hurt him, to make him feel as neglected and unseen as I felt. "Must run in the family," I slurred, taking another big gulp of wine. Being emotionally unavailable. Well, except for Finn, I guess. Suppose one brother had to get all the personality. Finn stood up so abruptly his chair scraped against the floor. "I should go. Early shift tomorrow." He wouldn't even look at me. He made his excuses and left, ignoring his mother's pleas for him to stay for dessert. The silence after he was gone was deafening. Liam didn't say a single word on the drive home. I filled the space with bitter commentary about his family, how they were too sensitive, how they'd never really accepted me. He just kept his eyes on the road, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When we got home, I wanted a fight. I was braced for one. Instead, he just looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw a mixture of disappointment and resignation that made my stomach turn to ice. "We need to talk about what's going on with you and Finn," he said, his voice quiet. Too quiet. I went on the defensive. Immediately. "There's nothing going on. We're friends. He's my brother-in-law. Am I not allowed to have a relationship with your family?" "A relationship?" "Yes," he said, his voice level. "But what you're doing, this isn't that." And what exactly am I doing, Liam? Being friendly? Having a conversation? Showing an emotion, unlike some robot?" He just shook his head slowly. "You know exactly what you're doing, Alara. And so does everyone else." That made me furious. "Oh, so now everyone's talking about me? Your perfect little family, looking down on me again. Well, at least Finn treats me like a person, not like some problem that needs to be fixed." He went quiet again. That infuriating, calm under pressure geologist calm that made me want to scream. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight," he said finally. "I think we both need some space." "Running away again," I yelled after him as he packed an overnight bag. "That's what you're good at, isn't it? Leaving me alone." He paused at the door, his back to me. "No, Alara," he said without turning around. "I'm not the one running away from our marriage, you are." Then he left. Our first wedding anniversary was the next week. To my surprise, Liam came home for it. He made reservations at an expensive steakhouse downtown, a place we'd never been. I figured he was trying to make up for the tension. I spent hours getting ready, partly hoping he'd notice, partly out of a habit I'd formed of dressing up just in case I might accidentally run into Finn. The restaurant was beautiful, all dark wood and soft lighting. Liam ordered a bottle of expensive champagne. He tried to make conversation. He asked about the studio, and I found myself wishing he would just lecture me about the finances instead. This strained attempt at normalcy felt so much worse. Then, he gave me his gift. It was a brand new, top-of-the-line tablet. "For the studio," he said, his expression earnest. "It has all the best business management and accounting software pre-installed. It should help you get everything organized." I just stared at it. The week before, I'd seen an Instagram story from Finn's girlfriend. He'd bought her a stunning, antique locket for their 6-month anniversary. The contrast hit me like a physical blow. Here was my husband, on our first wedding anniversary, giving me accounting software. The champagne wasn't helping my mood. The tablet sat between us on the white tablecloth like an accusation. "You just don't get it, do you?" I said, pushing the box away from me. This is exactly why we're having problems. You think everything can be fixed with spreadsheets and budgets. Alara, that's not... No, let me finish. You know what Finn got his girlfriend? A locket. A beautiful, thoughtful, romantic gift. Not some practical office supply. Liam's face went completely still. "Why are you so concerned with what Finn gives his girlfriend?" "That's not the point. The point is you don't understand me. At all. Finn would never what, Alara?" His voice was dangerously low. The whine. The resentment. The weeks of building this fantasy in my head. It all came pouring out in a torrent of cruel, unfiltered honesty. Finn would never treat me like a business problem he has to solve. He actually sees me. As a person. Not just a line item in his perfect, balanced budget. I let out a bitter, ugly laugh. "You know what?" I said, looking him dead in the eye. "Sometimes I think I married the wrong brother." The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavier than any silence I had ever known. Liam just looked at me for a long, long moment. I saw something in his eyes break. Then he stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. Without a single word, he turned and walked out of the restaurant. He just left me there. I sat in shock for a few minutes, the half-empty champagne glasses glittering on the table. Then I did what I always did when things went wrong. I called Finn. But this time was different. Instead of his usual warm, sympathetic tone, his voice was distant, cold. "You went too far, Alara," he said, his voice flat. "Way too far." "But he gave me a tablet, Finn. For our anniversary." "I don't care," he cut me off. "You need to fix this. Or don't. But I can't be your backup plan anymore." He hung up. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. I did the only other thing I could think to do. I started posting on social media. Vague, dramatic quotes about settling for less than you deserve, about finding true happiness. I was sure Liam would see them. He'd realize he was overreacting. He'd come home, apologize for walking out, and we could just move on. But Liam didn't come home that night, or the next, or the next. 3 days of crushing silence. I called his parents. They were polite but cool, saying he was just taking some time. I tried calling Finn again, but my calls went straight to voicemail. His Instagram showed him at work, but he'd blocked me from commenting. A knot of real, genuine fear started to tighten in my stomach. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Liam was supposed to chase me, to fight for me. Finn was supposed to be there, telling me I was right. Instead, I was completely, utterly alone in our big, empty house, with nothing but a tablet full of accounting software for company. When Liam finally came back, he wasn't alone. He had a manila envelope tucked under his arm, and a look on his face I'd never seen before. Not angry, not hurt, just done. He set the envelope on our kitchen island. I stood there in my yoga pants, trying to act casual, like I hadn't been obsessively refreshing both brothers' social media pages for 72 hours straight. "I think you should sit down," he said. He was using his geologist voice, the one I imagined he used during rock slides or equipment failures. Calm, steady, absolute. Saturday. He opened the envelope and started laying out papers on the cool marble countertop, one by one. Screenshots of my text messages with Finn, Instagram DMs, photos. Photos of Finn and me at that coffee shop across town, me leaning in, his hand on my arm. Security camera stills from his bar, time-stamped, showing us talking late after closing. Bank statements, highlighting every meal, every drink I'd had at the bistro near his bar when Liam was flying. Everything had dates, times, locations. My voice came out as a small, weak whisper. "Finn? Finn gave you these?" Liam looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the true depth of his exhaustion. "He's my brother, Alara. Did you really think he wouldn't tell me what was going on? He's been keeping me updated for months." The reality of it hit me like a physical slap. All those times Finn had listened to me complain about Liam, all those secret coffee meetings, all those late-night texts filled with validation. It was all a performance. Henry had known. Finn had been reporting back to him the entire time. That's an invasion of privacy," I stammered, trying to sound outraged. "You had your brother spy on me." "No, Ilara." He slid another piece of paper across the counter. "I had my brother protect me from you. Divorce papers. Already filled out. Just waiting for my signature. But nothing even happened with Finn. We didn't." Liam's voice was tired, worn down to the bone. "Maybe not physically, but you chose him, Alara. Every single time. Every time you ran to him instead of talking to me. Every time you compared us. Every time you undermined our marriage just to get his attention." He paused, his gaze unwavering. And then that comment at dinner. "I was drunk. It was just a stupid joke." "No," he said softly. "It wasn't. And we both know it." My phone buzzed on the counter. Instinctively, I reached for it, a desperate, foolish hope that it was Finn. It was a notification. "Finn has blocked you on Instagram." When I looked up, tears blurring my vision, Liam was watching me with a sad, knowing look. "He's engaged, by the way," Liam said quietly. "Has been for 2 months. That antique locket you were so impressed by? It was an engagement gift for his fiancée. He just didn't post about it. He said he knew you'd find a way to make it about you." The room started to spin. Engaged. To that girlfriend he barely ever posted about. All those times he'd let me flirt, all those deep conversations. "You know what the worst part is, Alara?" Liam continued, his voice cracking for the very first time. "He tried to warn me, before the wedding. He said you seemed more interested in him than in me. But I defended you. I told him he was wrong. I told him you were just friendly, that you would never..." He trailed off, staring at the divorce papers between us. I noticed his hands were shaking. Just slightly. The first time I had ever seen him lose that perfect geologist composure. "The studio is failing, isn't it?" he asked suddenly, his voice back to being flat. "That's why you've been taking money from our joint savings." Finn told me about the credit cards, too. I felt the walls closing in. Everyone knew. They had all been talking about me, comparing notes, while I floated along in my own selfish, little fantasy, thinking I was the one in control. That was 6 months ago. Now, I'm living in Clara's spare room. I can't afford my own place. The studio, Petale, closed last month. Turns out Liam was right about the importance of those spreadsheets. The bank seized most of the equipment to cover the loans I'd taken out in a fit of optimistic delusion. I tried blaming Liam for a while, for not supporting my dream enough, but even Clara has stopped buying that excuse. Liam got the house in the divorce. His lawyer had a field day with the bank statements showing how I'd systematically drained our savings. My Instagram following, once my source of validation, dropped by half when people realized I wasn't a glamorous business owner anymore. Most of my entrepreneur friends vanished when I could no longer host their workshops or promote their products for free. The worst part? Liam is dating someone new. One of my former clients, actually. A landscape architect named Sarah. She's everything I pretended to be. Financially responsible, genuinely supportive, honest. I saw them at the farmer's market last week. He was laughing. A real, deep, genuine laugh. Not the polite chuckle he used to give my jokes. Oh, and Finn? He's married now. The engagement photos were all over social media. His wife looking radiant. That antique locket nestled against her collarbone. They moved to Chicago for her job. But not before Finn wrote me a letter. He said he'd only ever seen me as a sister-in-law. That he played along with my flirting because he was gathering evidence for Liam. That all those deep conversations were just him trying to protect his brother. That he was never, not for a second, interested in me that way. He was just being nice for Liam's sake. My friends have mostly taken Liam's side. They say I was wrong. That joking about marrying his brother was cruel beyond words. But here's the thing. I still think Liam shares some of the blame. If he'd just been more present, more emotionally available, more like Finn, well, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe if he hadn't been so obsessed with budgets and practicality, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere for validation, right? I saw on Facebook that Liam's parents are hosting Thanksgiving this year. Sarah posted a picture of a pie she was test baking for the dinner. Apparently, she's a good cook, too. My invitation must have gotten lost in the mail. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I had married Finn instead. But then I remember the look on his face as he made his excuses at that family dinner. I remember how easily he turned on me, how he'd been playing me the whole time. At least Liam, in his quiet, steadfast way, was always honest about who he was. The irony is not lost on me. That tablet he gave me for our anniversary would be really useful for job hunting right now. But I left it behind when I moved out. Too proud, even then, to admit he was right. Clara says I should see a therapist. Work on myself. She doesn't understand. I'm not the problem. I just made the mistake of marrying the wrong brother, even if the other brother never wanted me in the first place. The other day, I drove past our old house. Liam's car was in the driveway next to Sarah's sleek hybrid. Through the big picture window, I could see them in the kitchen, cooking together. He was showing her something on that tablet, probably teaching her how to use those accounting programs he tried so desperately to get me to learn. They looked happy, comfortable, like they belonged there. I sat in my car and cried for an hour. Not because I miss Liam, not really, but because, somehow, I went from being a promising floral designer with a geologist husband and a beautiful house, to sleeping on my friend's pull-out couch and arranging cheap carnations for a grocery store chain. And the worst part? Deep down, in the quiet, empty moments when I'm being truly honest with myself, I know exactly whose fault it is. I just can't bring myself to admit it out loud.